afternoon, part 16 of the melodeon restoration. So what I'm doing today is going to start tuning up the reeds on the melodeon. First of all, a few tools of the trade. I've got the little kind of bellows tuner that I've made out of an old accordion, and so I've got that ready. And then also what's really helpful is some fine blades. So I've got some craft knives, and these are quite good for supporting the reed before you do any work to the tuning of it. You're holding it, so you're not just pushing down onto the reed itself, you're supporting it underneath. So these are very good for doing that. A few scrapers and pointy things. This little pointy tool here is very good for lifting up reeds before you do the tuning. And I've got a series of diamond tip files, which are just really sharp and really good at just creating some differences in the metal, some kind of scratches if you like, or filing the metal to get the reed to sound differently. But obviously you have to be very, very careful when you do anything with the reeds, because if you do too much you can actually knacker the reeds and make them really horrible. So you have to be very careful in how much you do and how you do it. So there's a few tools of the trade. So what I've also got is I've got a chromatic tuner, and it's tempered tuning. So when I tune it to this, the notes in the scale will sound correct. So if it was untempered and you tuned it, you might find that you get everything tuned, you play the scale and it doesn't sound quite right. So tempered tuning, chromatic, so that's going to be next to me here. And then I'm going to just show you how to do one reed first. So I've got a reed that I'm going to test on this test bellows. So I'm going to put some air through it, have a look at it, and see what happens on the chromatic tuner. So let's have a little go. I'm going to start with this one here. Now what was going on here is on my chromatic tuner, that note was a D, and that was a D flat. Now the D flat was actually perfectly in tune right on the button, but the D, that one, was just very slightly flat, just a tiny bit flat from absolute spot on. So what I'm going to do for that D, which is that one there, I'm going to sharpen that reed very slightly. So I'm going to show you how I would do that. So first of all, I'm going to find the reed that I'm going to sharpen. So I think it was, because I'm playing it, I can hear it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to support the reed with a fine blade, and to sharpen it I'm going to take a very fine diamond tipped file, there you go, and I'm going to just very, very carefully, using the file, take a bit off the tip of that reed. And so by taking a little bit off the tip, the reed will give a higher pitch, very slightly. Now you don't get much off, so I'm going to do a little bit and then retest it, so it's not to go much. So I'm going to just hold the blade so I'm supporting the reed, and then I'm going to just take a little bit off the end. There we are. So I've just taken just a tiny bit off the tip of that reed, and let's have a look. Not quite enough, so I'll do a little bit more. It's always good to do a little bit at a time, rather than going too heavy-handed and getting too much. So I'm going to support the reed, a tiny bit of filing on the tip. Let's try that. nearly there. It's getting really close, but I know I can just go a tiny bit more on that one. So. Let's have another go. And there we go. Spot on. That was absolutely bang on the push and pull. So that's now tuned. So I've tuned that reed by sharpening it, supporting the reed with a little blade. It doesn't even push against, and then using a tiny diamond tip file, just taking off a tiny bit off the tip, and then checking it. I did it 3 times because I liked it really carefully rather than doing really gung-ho. Just do it a little tiny bit at a time and making it a little bit sharper. Okay, I'm going to find a reed where I do something else, I flatten it. So I'm going to have a little look for a reed that I need to flatten, and I'll show you how I would flatten a reed. Give me a second. Okay, so what I'm going to do is do a little bit of flattening. So I found one which needs a little bit of flattening. So this note here, I've got 2 reeds. That's an A and a B. And that A is just a bit too sharp. Just a tiny bit, not quite bang on. That one there. So this time, I'm going to support the reed in the same way with my blade, but rather than taking off the tip of the reed, I'm going to put some little kind of little scratches somewhere between halfway along the reed and the rivet on that section there. And by putting some little scratches, careful scratches, you can lower the pitch very slightly. Now again, it's much better to do a little bit at a time than lots and lots. So I might do it 2 or 3 times just to get it right. So I'm going to support the reed, find myself a nice little scratching tool like a diamond tipped file, and I'm going to take a little bit off the reed by putting some careful diagonal scratches between halfway in the rivet, and then retest it again. Okay, let's try that one. And actually on my little tuner, it was spot on. So just a tiny bit of flattening and that reed was spot on. Now that's quite easy to do the tuning on the reeds that you can see, which are on the outside. Now if you have to do something to the reed on the inside, that's a slightly tricky thing. Now this is why I'll just show you how I do that. So imagine I was doing a reed here, but underneath the valve on the inside. I've got a long little pointy thing here, very thin, like that. And what I'll do, I'll put that in from the inside, and I can then lift the reed up. And if you pull the valve back a little bit, there we are. And then you can see the reed that you've just pushed back up through the chamber, and then you can either take a bit off the tip or very carefully tiny bit of scratching between halfway and the rivet. So the ones on the inside are a bit more tricky because you haven't got access to them, but having a little very thin little pointer like this means that I go from the inside, lift up the reed. You have to pull the valve back a little bit so you get access to the reed, and you can still do the filing and the scraping to get that working. So the ones on the inside are a bit more tricky, just have to be more careful. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through and tune up all the reeds. And on this melodeon, I've got 2 voices. I've got the reeds, the line of reed tuned to concert pitch, and then I've got a higher set of reeds which are tuned above that to give the kind of tremolo. So I'm just tuning the standard pitch reeds to start with, get them all bang on, and then I'm going to have a look at the tuning of the tremolo reeds, if you like, and see how they're doing and what kind of tremolo I'm getting from this set of reeds. So I'm going to stop the video here. I'm going to just tune up the concert pitch reeds, if you like, as well as I can to bang on to the frequencies, and then I'll go and have a check of the second set of reeds, which are slightly higher, and see how they work together. Okay, so I've tuned up all of the reeds, which are kind of concert pitch ones, on this block. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to put them back into the melodeon, and I'm going to see what it sounds like actually inside the box. But what I want to do, I want to play those reeds without playing the higher set of reeds. So on the melodeon, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get some tape. I'm going to tape off the row of holes corresponding to the higher set of reeds, so I can just see what the standard set of reeds sound like on their own. So the higher set of reeds will be this inside line of holes. So just a little bit of electrical tape. I'm going to tape them off just temporarily. Okay, let's put the reed block back in. And then when I play it next, I'll just be listening to the one set of reeds and seeing how they sound. So I'll just put it back together just 1 second. Okay, so now the reeds are back in. The interesting thing now is to see how the reeds are responding to being actually inside the box on the, actually fixed onto the melodeon itself, and see if it makes a difference. So these are the notes. I'm just checking all the notes. So the G flat is running a bit high. It's just going a tiny bit high. That one there. So G flat's going a bit high. Everything else. That one there. Everything else sounded okay. So I'm going to take it all out and just get that G flat a bit flatter. That one. Get the G flat a tiny bit flatter. And then that will be the first step done. So I'm going to take it apart and get the reed block out. Okay, so the G flat, I'm just going to make it a tiny bit lower. So that one there, just check it. So I'm going to make it a bit lower so I can support the reed, and then make it a tiny bit lower. Okay, so I'll flatten that one a little bit. I'll put it back into the melodeon and have another quick listen. Okay, so I've done the little bit of work on that G flat. That was the only one that was really changed from being actually into the melodeon. So it was quite pleasing that the effect wasn't that much wrong. So let's have a quick look. That's really pleasing. So now I've got that row, it's a D row, tuned the concert pitch ones. Really nice. So the next thing I'm going to do is take out that reed block and have a listen to two reeds together. So, okay. So the next thing is, now I've tuned the standard pitch reeds up, tuned them properly, and I've put them back in the melodeon and then made a final adjustment to that G flat. Apart from that, they were sounding pretty nice, so I'm pretty pleased with that. So what I'm going to do now, I've opened up both holes, so I'm going to play two together and just have a listen to the musette sound and just see how they are. So let's have a little look. Just by ear, let's have a little listen. Okay, so not sounding too bad, but there's one or two down here. That one, the A, D flat sounds okay. So the A needs a little bit of investigation, so I'm not sure what's going on with that A. So let's just try and see what the A is doing. So I know that the A at concert pitch was okay. So let's see what the A at the tremolo pitch is doing. So let's have a little look. Okay, so that A is not high enough. It's too low. It's below the bang on frequency, and to get that treble it should be a little bit above. So I'm going to sharpen that A and make it a bit sharper, and that should affect the treble. So I'll just sharpen it and I'll come back in a sec. Okay, so all back in, and then let's have a little test ride. The only one sound that I'm a bit concerned about is the E. That sounds a little bit off. And I think it's kind of a bit too tremolo-y, so I'm just going to go and check that E. But apart from that, that E. So I'm going to check the E. Okay. So I've kind of come to a close on the tuning up the treble side reeds. I'm quite happy with how they sound. So that's my technique. Hope that makes some sense. It's not quite as some people do it, but I kind of use my tuner, but then also use my ear to listen out for the tremolo tuning. So I'm going to stop it there. The next thing I'm going to do is, I'll probably do it on the next video, is tuning up the bass reeds, but I'll leave this one for now.